Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I am, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather around as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies, movie news, TV, and streaming, and all sorts of good stuff. And I'm in a good mood today, guys. We're going to be talking a little bit about Eternals today. You can tell that from the main topic of the show today. But I went to go see Eternals for my third screening last night. I actually drove out to Burbank. This is how much I actually really do enjoy this movie. I actually drove out to Burbank. You know, it's an hour-long drive for me to get there. And I went out with my buddy Ryan. He hadn't seen the film yet. And we went out to watch it for a third time. And as I'm going to watch it for a third time, and I'm enjoying this movie. I mean, it's not the best Marvel film of the year by any stretch, but that's Shang-Chi. But I enjoy it. But as I'm sitting there enjoying it, the critic rating of on Rotten Tomatoes of Eternals continues to fall. We're going to be talking about that a little bit. Why do some people out there still believe that Spider-Man is going to stay in the MCU after No Way Home is done? Well, there's actually a few pretty good reasons for that. We're going to talk about that as well. That and a couple of other things as well. And by the way, guys, I'm going to let you know that we're going to try something a little bit different today. I got a suggestion from one of our viewers, Jackson, who wrote into me the other day and said, you know, John, sometimes I don't want to fire in a question, but I just like to fire in a comment on one of the topics to be read on the show. Do you think maybe you could turn on the super chat feature, and so us viewers don't necessarily send in questions that you have to answer, but maybe send in comments about today's topics that you'll read on the show? And I thought, that's not a bad idea. So today we're going to try it. For those of you who are watching live, you might notice the super chat feature is actually turned on right now. So if you guys, while we're talking about today's topics and subjects, if you guys have a comment or an observation you'd like to make about one of those comments or subjects, you can use the super chat feature and send it in. And then what I'll do is at the end of all the main topics, I'll read through the comments, as long as your comments are appropriate, that you guys sent in on the super chat. And then we'll get into the live comments and questions that you guys sent in. So I don't know if this will work. Maybe it'll be a big hot mess and we'll never do it again, but I thought we'd give it a try. And by the way, King Tantic, while we were just talking about that, sent in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate that very much. Okay. Want to let you guys know, too, if you can't get your daily fix of the John Campea Show on a YouTube channel, maybe you can't watch a video, maybe you're commuting, maybe you're jogging, maybe you're at the gym, whatever it is you're doing, there is an audio-only version of the show that you can get. It's the John Campea Show podcast, and I don't have it up on screen right now, so because, you know, reasons, because I'm completely... there we go. There it is. Because I was completely unprepared for today's show. But there it is. There is the John Campea Show podcast that you guys can go and subscribe to today. And it'll be there when you need to listen to it. And thank you to everybody who's already subscribed to the podcast. We appreciate that very much. Okay, guys, here's how today's show is going to go. We break it into two parts, as always. We're going to take the first half of the show to take some predetermined topics, and then we're going to take the second half of the show to take your live questions. Now, if you want to fire in a live question to be read on the show, simply go down to the description of this video, and you'll see a tip link. Click on that there, or you can enter it in manually at www.streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. You'll be getting your question read on our show or an upcoming companion video if it's appropriate for our show. And of course, you'll be supporting the channel at the same time. And all of us involved here at the John Campea Show, thank you guys so very much for your support. Okay, guys, with that down, let's do an off the top here before we do anything else, shall we? And that off the top we're going to talk about is this. Now, one of the big things that's been going on, obviously, in the world of film for the last little bit has been the accidental shooting death on the set of the Jensen Ackles, Alec Baldwin film, Rust. And it's a complete tragedy. We've been talking about it. I still have no idea. I've been saying for years, I have no idea why some movies and TV shows still insist on using real guns. Even though there's not supposed to be real ammunition in them, I still have no idea why. There's no reason to. They have alternatives to that the audience at home cannot distinguish between the real thing. No idea why this happens, but it still does, and we end up with another shooting death, accidental shooting death on the set of a movie with Rust. Now, we've talked about that a bit. And, we've also talked about the fact that, there's still a lot of information that needs to be gathered. Maybe we shouldn't be pointing fingers and all that kind of stuff. But the one thing we have all assumed is that it was an accident. I mean, nobody intended for somebody to get shot. I mean, whether it was terrible negligence or whatever, it was an accident. Well, for the first time, it's now kind of being suggested that maybe it wasn't an accident. Now, what's happening right now is that the armorer, the person responsible for looking after the guns and everything on the set of a movie, the lawyer for the armorer who is on the set of Rust is now kind of suggesting that it might have been intentional sabotage. And I'm going to, without trying to paraphrase it, let's go through what they're kind of suggesting and why they're suggesting it right now, while maybe it was intentionally sabotaged for something like this to happen. So let's read through this article a bit here, because I think this is interesting stuff and it has a direct impact on what's kind of going on movie sets around the industry right now. So we'll get this. By the way, I just want to mention again, I'm already seeing some people fire in super chats. Guys, I am not taking questions via the super chats. If you want to fire in a comment about one of the topics, an observation or a comment, you can fire that in, but I am not taking questions. Don't fire in a question in the super chat for that, because I'm not going to be taking questions from there. I was very clear about that at the beginning. I just want to make sure you guys know that. Okay, let's get back over here to this article. This is from Variety, who writes, Jason Bowles and Robert, I'm sure I'm going to mispronounce this Robert's last name, Robert Gorentz, the attorneys for Rust armorer Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, spoke on Today, the Today Show, to paint a clearer timeline about how a live round got on set. Bowles also brought up the new defense that we are assuming somebody put the live round in that box, which, if you think about that, the person who put the live round in the box of dummy rounds had to have the purpose of sabotaging the set. Okay. So what they're saying here is that we believe there is a possibility that in that box with the dummy rounds and where the guns were being held, that somebody intentionally put in a live round in that with the intention of an accident then happening. That's a different narrative than what we've been hearing from people so far. Let's go back over here and continue on with what they're saying. And it's just as a reminder to everybody, the reason that, she died, the cinematographer died, was because there was a live round, something that should never happen. There was a live round in that gun. Anyway, we continue on here. The sabotaging the set statement made anchor Savannah Guthrie pause and clarify, asking, is that your theory of the case, that somebody intentionally placed a live round into a box of dummies for the purpose of it ending up in a weapon that could be used on set? We don't have any theory yet. We are investigating and we are trying to get all the facts, but that is one of the possibilities, Bowles respond. Okay, so at this point, the anchor on Today is saying, let me be clear about this. You are suggesting that somebody intentionally slipped in a live round. He's saying, look, we don't have any official theory, but that is one of the theories, one of the possibilities here. Yes. And then he goes on to explain why. Because it's easy just to say, well, I think somebody sabotaged us. But why does he think it's possible that somebody was intentionally trying to sabotage the set? This is where it gets interesting. When Guthrie pressed further, Bowles said, I believe that somebody who would do that would want to sabotage the set, want to prove a point, want to say that they're disgruntled, they're unhappy. And we know that people had walked off the set the day before. Now, I will let you guys go ahead and read up on this yourselves. Just go to Google, you can search for this. But one of the things that we learned about the Rust set was that the day before the accidental shooting, there was some disagreement and some of the crew members had Some of the crew members had walked off set. Apparently there were some people that were quite angry, yada, yada, yada. This, by the way, is not a terribly rare thing to happen. I mean, I'm not saying it happens often, but it's not incredibly rare. A movie set with so much money on the line and time being so tight and everybody trying to move as fast as they can, and as every second pass, money is being spent and blah, 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 and there's 1,000 moving pieces, understandably, there can be a lot of tension on a set for a lot of different reasons. Now, it's well documented online what caused the disgruntled, the dispute and the arguments and stuff like that. But the bottom line is that the armorer's lawyer is saying that, look, there was some heated exchanges the day before. Some crew members intentionally walked off set, and we're saying we don't think it's that far-fetched to believe that one of those disgruntled people decided to sabotage the set and drop a live round into that box. So, what do I think about this? First of all, let me say this. We have seen crazier things happen. We've all seen crazier things happen. We have all seen people do worse for much less of a reason. Is it the craziest theory in the world? Is it the craziest theory in the world that somebody who was angry and upset on the job could do something to try to undermine that workplace by sabotaging it? It's not the craziest theory in the world. We've seen it happen 1,000 times. We've seen horrible stories of somebody getting in an argument at work, going home, grabbing a gun and coming back and shooting people. I mean, that's not terribly uncommon in America, unfortunately. It happens. So is this theory the craziest theory I've ever heard? That somebody intentionally got a real bullet and put it in a place where they knew it could be put into a real gun that could end up causing an accident, maybe even costing somebody their lives. It's not the craziest theory in the world. It is not the dumbest thing I've heard. Now, does that mean I think that's what happened? I don't know if I buy that that's what happened. I mean, obviously, we don't know the facts. There's an investigation going on. There's still 99% of the information we probably don't know. Right? We probably only know a fraction of the percentage of the information that's available. There's probably 99%, and so who knows? But all I'll say is, on its face value, I find it a little bit of a stretch that, people arguing on a movie set, which isn't terribly uncommon, would lead them to want to put somebody's life at risk by dropping a live round into a box. Now, again, I say that from a position of ignorance. We don't know all the information. Maybe it's more feasible than I think. So, is it a plausible theory? Yes. I don't think any of us can deny it's a plausible theory. We've seen worse things happen. We've seen dumber things happen. Do I believe the theory? No. Until I see actual evidence that points towards that, I will say it's a possibility, sure. It's possible. Do I believe it? No. Not until evidence gets shown. But I think it's another interesting twist and turn. I mean, this whole incident might turn into its own movie. The Rust tragedy could at some point, if some of these crazy theories end up being true, the Rust tragedy could end up being its own movie at some point. But again, I just hope in the midst of all the finger pointing and all the speculation and all the wild somebody put a live round theories, that we as film fans don't lose sight that the most important thing here is the tragedy, that a young woman lost her life on the set of a movie, being an artist, being a creator, something that shouldn't be risking your life to do, and she died. And a husband lost a wife, a child lost their mother, parents lost their daughter, and friends lost loved ones. And I hope we don't lose sight of that. Anyway, it's an interesting new twist in this story. Question is for you guys. What do you think of this lawyer's new theory that a disgruntled employee on set purposely put a live round in with the intent to sabotage the production of Rust? Possible? Sure. Little far-fetched? Probably. But what do you guys think? Whatever it is you think, jump down into the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys. With that down, let's move on into our main topics here today, shall we? And how do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. You see, you guys come up with our main topics. Whenever you come across a big topic, issue, or story that you guys feel we need to cover as a main topic on the show, just go anytime 24/7 over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. You'll be getting your comment or question, or let me try this again. Send it into, I'm repeating the wrong part, the JohnCampeaShow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, you're going to see a form. Fill it out with your topic or question. It's absolutely free. Hit submit, and then maybe, just maybe, you might see your submission featured as a main topic here on the John Campea Show. With that down, let's get into main topic number 1. And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by Raymond Reddington, who writes, I'm anticipating Spider-Man No Way Home like everyone else. Me too, brother. I liked Venom 2, and the Morbius trailer is interesting. I also enjoy going to YouTube channels that try to uncover every hidden or not so hidden clues in their respective trailers. But I wanted to ask you a question. The tea leaves seem so clear that Spidey is heading back to Sony and leaving the MCU. Why is it so hard for some of the Find the Clues channel to say that Spider-Man is leaving the MCU possible and or most likely happening? All right. Thanks a lot for sending that in, Raymond. Appreciate that. And yeah, this is a topic that's been brought up a lot around here when we're talking about Spider-Man. Now, obviously, we're closing in. I think we're roughly about 6 weeks away. I haven't counted the days. I'm just going to say we're roughly 6 weeks away from Spider-Man No Way Home hitting cinemas. We already have the first trailer. What we don't have is a second trailer, and what we also don't have is a poster. By the way, I'm hearing whispers we're going to get a poster by Friday. I'm not running that as a story because I don't know that I believe where I'm hearing it from, but I'm just letting you know. I heard a little birdie say we may have a poster by Friday. I don't know if I believe that or not, but we'll see. But we don't have a poster. We don't have a second trailer, but the thing is coming up. But the biggest topic of conversation, besides the fact of, is Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire going to be in the new Spider-Man movie? That's obviously the number one topic of conversation is Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire, I almost said Andrew Maguire, are Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire going to be in the new Spider-Man No Way Home? That's obviously the number one topic. But the second topic that people are talking about besides that is, what is Spider-Man's future after No Way Home? Where does he go? What happens? There are people like me who believe that that No Way Home is going to be the cataclysm that leads Spider-Man out of the MCU to have him go back over to Sony. There are many people who believe that this is just the beginning of a brand new era of Spider-Man in the MCU. But what Raymond Reddington is asking is, with all the obvious proof that Spider-Man is leaving the MCU, how on earth can anybody believe that Spider-Man is actually going to be staying in the MCU after Spider-Man No Way Home? How can anybody believe it? Well, as somebody who believes that Spider-Man is leaving the MCU, I will tell you, and I have told you, there are several very good reasons to believe. If you believe that Spider-Man is staying, there are several good reasons to believe it. I mean, I think he's leaving, but there are some solid reasons to believe that he is staying. And we're going to talk about some of those reasons by jumping into the Campea Classroom for a second. Okay, so let's look at this question. Should I stay or should I go now? I feel like grabbing my guitar. So should I stay or should I go? Is Spider-Man staying or leaving? And we're asking the question, why would anybody believe he's staying? Well, we'll get to that in a second. Let's start with the reasons why he'll go. Okay, let's start with why he'll go, okay? Let's start with that. I think the first reason that you have to kind of buy into the idea that he's going to be leaving, I think, is the new Morbius ad is basically a promo for the Spider-Verse. We talked about this yesterday, right? Remember that? We talked about this yesterday. If you look at the new Morbius trailer, that gives references. The top is obviously a direct reference to the first Sam Raimi or Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. The second picture down from the top is clearly showing the Oscorp thing from Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. You have Michael Keaton representing the Tom Holland Spider-Man. And then, of course, the direct references to Venom, not just the Daily Bugle newspaper itself, but also verbally Morbius directly saying, I'm Venom, right? We talked about this yesterday, but basically when you look at this, the entire Morbius trailer was one big ad for the Sony Spider-Verse. For the Sony Spider-Verse. There was no references in there to Thanos or the Snap, or there was no references in there to WandaVision or to anything, or Captain America or Iron Man. But it was a full-on ad for the Sony Spider-Verse. Is that proof that Spider-Man is leaving the MCU to go over to Sony? No. But is it anecdotal evidence? Sure. I think you got to consider it a little bit of evidence. All right, so that's one reason why people like me think he's going to be leaving. The second is this: the limited duration of the new deal. Now, you guys remember that a couple of years ago, Sony and Disney said they were ending their deal, right? And everybody thought it was done. But then kind of at the last second, Disney and Sony came up with a new deal. But here was the interesting thing. The new deal wasn't for 10 years. The new deal wasn't for 5 more pictures. The new deal wasn't for whatever. It was a very limited time deal. Now, at the time when that deal happened, a couple of years ago, I said, you know what? It feels like this deal is being made so Spider-Man could have a really good exit out of the MCU instead of this abrupt ending and this abrupt exit out of the MCU, where 1 minute he's in the MCU and then all of a sudden we're told, oh, by the way, Spider-Man's not in the MCU anymore. So that's one. Is that proof that Spider-Man is leaving the MCU? No. Is it anecdotal? Yeah, it is. This other thing here, and by the way, going to give you guys a little bit of a warning right now. This next point is something you probably already know, but I am warning you, is going to be considered a spoiler for Venom 2 and the post-credit scene in Venom 2. The reality is, any of you guys who are even remotely interested in Venom 2, you've probably already seen it, or you've probably already seen the spoiler. But I am going to give you a warning. I'm about to go into spoiler territory for the post-credit scene in Venom 2, okay? Just want to give you that warning, giving that heads up. If you don't know what happens in the post-credit scene of Venom 2, please navigate away and, come back and join us for the John Campea Show tomorrow, because I'm about to go into that, giving you a big heads up. Okay? Got it? All right, let's get back to it here. Another piece of information that I believe points us towards Spider-Man leaving the MCU is Venom 2 post-credits. It's obvious that Sony is not giving Venom to the MCU. But they did introduce a bridge between the universes. With whatever it is that happened at the end of in the post-credits for Venom 2, when the light flashes and all of a sudden Venom is in the same room, but it's very different looking now, and there's the Spider-Man, the footage from the MCU on the TV, what we know is Sony is too vested in Venom. They're not sending Venom over to MCU. Yeah, MCU, you take Venom now. We did all the work of making successful movies for him, but you just take him now. But they did create that bridge. I think, like, when I saw that, I was like, okay, now I'm more convinced than ever that this is all setting up Venom probably hooking up with Spider-Man and bringing him back over. I think that's what it points to. Other people might think it points to something opposite, but just there for that. Okay, another thing that people like me believe that, or why people like me believe that Spider-Man is leaving. Another little piece of anecdotal evidence is Kevin Feige's comments about Spider-Man being able to travel between cinematic universes. We talked about this on the show yesterday as well. You guys remember the quote from Kevin Feige in 2019 when they were talking about, yeah, we've re-upped the deal for a little bit now. And he said, Spider-Man is the one hero who has the ability to travel in between cinematic universes. I think that was paving the way that he's going to be traveling from the MCU and being an MCU character over to a different cinematic universe, being the Sony Spider-Verse. Now, I think it also keeps the door open that maybe from time to time, Spider-Man can pop back up in the MCU. I think it leaves that door open. But why would Kevin Feige say Spider-Man has the ability to travel between cinematic universes if he wasn't about to travel to another cinematic universe? So that's another thing. Proof? No. Anecdotal? Yes. Here's a big one, though. This is a big, big reason that most people haven't been talking about, and that's this. The guy who's been directing the Spider-Man movies over at Marvel, John Watts, he has done a great job directing Homecoming, directing Far From Home. This dude does not get enough credit. and he should get more credit. He's done a great job directing these films. But here's the interesting thing. Director John Watts is moving off of Spider-Man. John Watts is moving on to direct Fantastic Four. I mean, again, is this proof that Spider-Man is leaving? No, but the guy who's been directing and has directed all three of the Spider-Man movies under Marvel's banner, Homecoming, Far From Home, No Way Home, he's now moving on to a different property in Marvel. He's moving on to a different solo film. He's moving on to Fantastic Four. Again, is that proof that Spider-Man is leaving the MCU? No, but it adds to the mounting bit of anecdotal evidence. And then, of course, there's this. We talked about this, maybe it was last month or 2 months ago. I can't remember exactly. But there was the words from Tom Holland himself. And let's revisit what Tom Holland said here. Tom Holland said, we were all treating Spider-Man, this is him talking about No Way Home and his experience shooting No Way Home. We were all treating Spider-Man No Way Home as the end of a franchise. Notice he didn't say the end of this story. He didn't say the end of this storyline. He didn't say the end of this chapter. Tom Holland said we were treating this movie, Spider-Man No Way Home, as the end of a franchise. I think if we were lucky enough to dive into these characters again, you'd be seeing very different version, aka the Sonyverse version. It would no longer be the Homecoming trilogy. We would give it some time and build something different and tonally change the films. Whether that happens or not, I don't know. But we were definitely treating No Way Home like it was coming to an end, and it felt like it. Again, is there anything in Tom Holland's statements here that directly say, I, Tom Holland, and letting you, the fans, know that I am done playing Spider-Man in the MCU, and from now on, my Spider-Man will be over in the Sony Spider-Verse? No, it wasn't that direct. But again, look, when you sit back and start adding all these up, the new Morbius trailer was basically a promo for the Sony Spider-Verse. The limited duration, the fact that they made such a short deal for this new Sony and Marvel partnership a couple of years ago. They made it such a short deal. The fact, when you look at Venom 2's post-credit scenes, it's Venom opening the door for Spider-Man to come back over. When you look at Feige's comments about Spider-Man is the only character who can travel between cinematic universes yet, and well, we haven't seen him travel to another cinematic universe yet. That's coming. The fact that director John Watts himself is moving off of Spider-Man and now going over to Fantastic Four because we're not going to have Spider-Man anymore, so you're freed up to go do Fantastic Four, John, and Tom Holland's own direct words. I think when you look at all of that, it creates a very solid basis for believing that Spider-Man is about to leave the MCU. But the question Raymond is asking is, well, how could anybody think otherwise? Like when you look at all the mounting evidence, how on earth can anybody believe that Spider-Man is actually staying in the MCU? Well, I would actually say to you, Raymond, as somebody who does believe he's leaving, there's some very good reasons that somebody would hold on to the belief that Spider-Man is going to stay in the MCU after No Way Home. Let's talk about this. We'll talk about this, or should I stay? Okay, so these are some arguments about why he might stay. The number one thing is this. The partnership has been amazing success. I should have said has been, I can't speak English good. We'll say has been an amazing success. Listen, let's put two cliches together. Winning cures everything, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Put those together, what do you got? You got the Disney and Sony Spider-Man situation. Homecoming was a win. Far From Home was a win. People are buzzing like hell over No Way Home. Winning cures everything. And then, of course, my dad's old favorite saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. You cannot discount the importance of this partnership between Sony and Marvel has been working. It's been working. I mean, it just has. Everybody's been making money. Sony's making money as the distributor of the film, and they've done a very good job with their marketing campaigns for those movies and their distribution. They've done a great job. That's been working great. Marvel's been making money. They get a little percentage of the box office, plus they get a big production fee from Sony. They've been making money. I mean, this is a big deal. You cannot undersell the importance of the fact that everything has worked with this deal so far. And that in and of itself, if you're somebody who believes that Spider-Man is going to stay in the MCU, that alone is a really good reason to believe that. All by itself, that's a good reason to believe that. Let's go on to another reason. The majority of fans, if we go back over here, want Spidey to stay in the MCU. Now, these Kevin Feige, the heads of Marvel, the heads of Sony, their number one concern is not what do the majority of the fans want. That's really not their main concern, but it is something you got to consider. And while there are people like me who thinks it would be a very exciting prospect to see Spider-Man go back over to Sony, because hard reality time here, guys, Sony has made the better Spider-Man movies than Marvel has. Just has. I mean, all film is subjective. I'm obviously saying that from my own subjective opinion, but I'll use the verbiage. They just have. Marvel has never made a Spider-Man movie as good as Spider-Man 2. Marvel has never made a Spider-Man movie as good as Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Again, all subjective, but that is my point of view. Sony has just made the better Spider-Man movies. And so on that basis alone, somebody like me finds it very exciting that he could go back over to Sony. I also love the idea of Spider-Man being a legitimate great hero on his own, other than having to have Uncle Tony Stark and giving him little Iron Man Jr. armor. But I won't go into that whole rant again. But despite the fact that there are people like me who feel that way, the reality is the majority of fans out there, the majority of you guys watching, having the audacity to disagree with me on this. But the reality is the majority of you guys want to see Spider-Man stay in the MCU. Is that the most important thing? No, it ain't the most important thing. But is it a big thing? It's a big thing, just like the success of this thing has been huge so far. Another argument about, or another good reason that you can rely on if you're somebody who believes that Spider-Man is going to be staying in the MCU, and this isn't a small thing. Think about this for a second. It's up until now, there hasn't been any storyline in the Spider-Man arc that at all appears to be leading him out of the MCU. Now, why is that significant? Well, here's why it's significant. If I'm right, and I don't know that I am, but if I'm right, and Disney and Marvel extended their deal with the express purpose of having Spider-Man have a proper exit out of the MCU, well, then you would think, narratively speaking, they would be dropping those types of story hints, right? You'd think up until the movie that's going to do it in No Way Home, you would think that they would start laying out some breadcrumbs. Wouldn't that be reasonable? Would you not in advance start laying out some story breadcrumbs that could lead into this big culmination in No Way Home that leads to Spider-Man going out of the Spider-Verse or going out of the MCU? Is it absolutely necessary? No, but it would stand to reason that maybe you'd do that, and they haven't done that. And so I think if you're somebody who believes that Spider-Man is going to be staying firmly in the MCU after No Way Home, I think you've got some very solid, firm, logical arguments to stand behind. The fact that the partnership between the two companies has been amazingly successful so far. The fact that the majority of the fans want Spider-Man to stay in the MCU. And look, up till now, there's been no hint in the story. There's been lots of hints outside of the movies, but within the movies, there hasn't been the slightest hint of a possibility of Spider-Man leaving. So here's what I would say, Raymond. This is what I would say. I would say that, yes, I believe that Spider-Man is leaving the MCU, with the possibility of popping up now and again. I don't know what else you could possibly think Kevin Feige was talking about when he said, our Spider-Man is the one character that can travel between cinematic universes. But that's what I believe. But unlike what you're saying, Raymond, it is not crazy to believe he's staying. There's a lot of very solid reasons to believe he is. And by the way, I probably didn't even cover all of them. Do you guys have more reasons why you think it's clear to you that he's going to stay in the MCU? I think there's a lot of reasons saying it's clear he's going to leave. I think there's a few saying it's clear he's going to stay. What do you guys think? Did I miss any of these things? Whatever you guys are thinking about this or have to add to this conversation, jump on down into the comment section below and leave us your thoughts. Okay, guys. Now that's going to be a good one. That's going to be, and by the way, if you have an observation or comment you want me to read on this show right now, go ahead and use the super chat feature and send it in. We'll read it at the end there. All right, guys. Before we move on to the next main topic today, I want to point out and thank the people who are bringing today's episode of the John Campea Show to us today, and that is the people over at Get Upside. Now, I've been talking about Get Upside for the last couple of days. I have used this app, I have enjoyed this app, and I'm already making money on this app. Here's what Get Upside basically is. You download the app from either the App Store or the Google Play Store, depending on if you're on iOS or on the Android platform. And you use it when you go to the gas station, some other stores, restaurants, things like that. You check in with it, and it's just this simple. You get money back, up to 25 cents per gallon of gas that you use when you go to a gas station. And here's the really cool thing. If you go and download the Get Upside app today, which you should all do, I highly recommend it. Go get the Get Upside app, download it to your phone, install it. There's no catch, there's no fees, nothing like that. And if you go there and put in the promo code Campea, that's C-A-M-P-E-A, use the promo code Campea, you could get up to 50 cents per gallon, not to mention all the other great deals that you get at other businesses as well. You'll be surprised when you open it up and you look at all the places you can check in and use the app. It's pretty impressive. It's money that you get into your account, and then they give you a number of options of how you like to get paid out. You can have it paid out directly to your bank account. You can have it deposited into your PayPal account, or if you use Amazon or some other things like that, they can give you an e-gift card to use on those things as well. There's a number of options available to you. So guys, once again, go on over to your app store of choice, download the Get Upside app, put in the promo code Campea, and that's just another way you can support our show as well by supporting our sponsors there. So we want to thank again Get Upside for being here for this, and go and give it a try, guys, and let me know about your experiences. All right. With that down, guys, let's move on to main topic number 2, shall we? And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Alan Renshaw. And Alan Renshaw writes, I just saw an article that said Sofia Boutella will star in Zack Snyder's new Netflix movie titled Rebel Moon. I believe that she is a good actress, and this is a good choice. What are your thoughts? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, Alan. And yeah, listen, it's kind of funny that this happened because it was just, I gotta say, maybe 2 weeks ago, I was talking to a buddy of mine, and we're talking about Atomic Blonde, the Charlize Theron movie, which also had Sofia Boutella in it. And we stopped and we went, whatever happened to Sofia Boutella? Because she kind of burst onto the scene with the Kingsman. And then she was that alien character in Star Trek Beyond, which I thought that movie was great. And I thought she was really good in it. And then she played this super sexy role as kind of a love interest to Charlize Theron in Atomic Blonde. And it kind of felt like Sofia Boutella's stock was rising. It felt like she was really on the rise. And then we didn't really see a lot coming from her. Well, there's something coming from her now. She's going to be in the new Zack Snyder movie. This comes to us from the folks over at the Hollywood Reporter who write, the log line for the project, this is the movie called Rebel Moon, reads, when a peaceful colony on the edge of the galaxy finds itself threatened by the armies of the tyrannical Regent Balisarius, they dispatch a young woman with a mysterious past to seek out warriors from neighboring planets to help them take a stand. And that comes to us again from the Hollywood Reporter. All right, what do I think about this? Well, first things first. This is a terrible picture of Sofia, by the way. I don't know why the Hollywood Reporter. Sofia Boutella, if you've never seen Sofia Boutella, don't look. I don't know why the Hollywood Reporter uses it. She is stunningly gorgeous. Okay, she is stunningly beautiful. Not the best picture the Hollywood Reporter could have picked for it. It's the weirdest picture. Anyway, stunningly beautiful, majorly athletic. And one of the reasons she's majorly athletic and pulls off action so well is because, I kid you not, oh my God, guys, she is a world-class dancer. A world-class dancer. Like stupid good. I remember after seeing her in Atomic Blonde, I never even knew she danced. I had no idea that she danced. And a buddy of mine told me, jump on YouTube and search Sofia Boutella dance. Just search for Sofia Boutella dance. And I did. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, she's absolute. Just do it. Just go and look it up. I guarantee you'll start to go down a YouTube rabbit hole. You'll find one dancing video of hers, and then you'll start looking for others because she's amazing. She's absolutely incredible. Okay, anyway, let's get back to the topic at hand besides how good of a dancer she is. So, what do I think about the sounds of this movie, Rebel Moon? Well, it sounds very familiar. And if it sounds very familiar, it's because Zack Snyder has said, look, this is kind of my love letter to Seven Samurai, because obviously that plot outline, very similar to Seven Samurai. He already said, this is kind of my love letter to movies like Seven Samurai, Star Wars, and things like that. And of course, Zack Snyder wanted to make a Star Wars film a number of years ago. So he said, this is kind of my love letter to that. It also reminds me a lot of, most of you guys probably don't remember this movie. There's this old movie, this old sci-fi movie that had George Papard from A-Team called Battle Beyond the Stars. And it had George Papard as a character named, and I kid you not, the character's name was Space Cowboy. No, that's not what he was. That's what his character's name is. Space Cowboy. What's your name? My name's Space Cowboy. Anyway, that tells you a little something about the movie. But the whole premise of that movie, Battle Beyond Stars, was as well. There was this peaceful planet. They were being threatened by this foreign invading force. Somebody left to go to try to find mercenaries to gather together to help stand against them. Kind of the same thing with Rebel Moon. Here's the thing. It's a great concept. That classic Seven Samurai setup is great. And I think that set in a sci-fi atmosphere, hopefully done much better than Battle Beyond the Stars was, by Zack Snyder, who visually, I honestly think has one of the best visual, sensibilities out of any director in Hollywood. Like, even movies of Zack Snyder's that you may or may not like, you got to admit it's gorgeous. Like the one Zack Snyder movie that I don't like. There's only one. The one Zack Snyder movie I don't like is Sucker Punch. Terrible movie. Terrible. But oh my God, it's gorgeous. It's beautiful. Zack Snyder even brings that visual sensibility, that gorgeous eye he has for visuals in movies. He did this little animated film called Legend of the Guardians, The Owls of Gaul. And it's an animated film. Most of you guys haven't seen it, but it's quite good. I really like that movie, but it's beautiful. Like, it's not just the animation and the art in it that's great. It's the quote unquote, and I always feel weird using the term cinematography when it comes to animated stuff, but the cinematography of The Owls of Gaul is incredible and amazing. And he always brings that real visual flair to whatever projects he's doing. And I've always appreciated that about him. But at any rate, so to take a Seven Samurai concept, put it into a sci-fi thing, merging his love of Seven Samurai and Star Wars together, this could be really good. Now let's get back to Sofia Boutella for a second. I really like Sofia Boutella, and I think she does a really good job in supporting roles. Her limited role in Kingsman, but I mean, we'll always remember her character in that. Her in Star Trek Beyond, and her in Atomic Blonde. Does she have the acting chops to carry a movie? I will say two things. Number one, I haven't seen her have the ability yet to carry a movie, to be the lead. I haven't seen that in her yet. I liked her very much in those supporting roles in those other three films. I have not seen her have those types of chops that tells me she could carry a movie. So that's thought number one. Thought number two is that it's been a couple of years since we've really seen her. And she could have been doing like a hell of a lot of work on her craft. She could have just been doing a lot of training the last couple of years. She may have gotten a lot better. Casting directors, I'm not saying this is what happened. I'm saying this is what theoretically could have happened. Casting directors may be looking at her tapes now and her reels and what she's able to do. And I'm saying, hey, look, this girl's come a long way. She's a lot better than she was a few years ago. And maybe Zack Snyder saw that and said, hell yes, let's put her as the lead in the next movie. I don't know if that's what happened or not, but it's possible. I know this. I would love to see her break out because I've seen a lot of interviews with her. She's infinitely likable. She's incredible at action on screen. And I think that all comes from her dancing background. And I've liked her in what I've seen her in so far. So I hope this works out. Anyway, guys, that's it. Sofia Boutella is going to be starring in the brand new Zack Snyder sci-fi film, Rebel Moon. What do you think about it? What do you think about the sounds of the movie itself? How do you feel about Sofia Boutella being the lead of it? Whatever you guys are feeling, jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 3, shall we? And our third main topic today gets submitted to us by Victor, who writes, a name so good he had to say it 3 times. Victor writes, hey, John, I'm very excited for Eternals and already have my tickets for Saturday. But as of this time, me writing this, it's fallen to just 53% on Rotten Tomatoes. It was already the lowest MCU rated film ever. But now it might actually end up being their first negatively reviewed movie if this slide continues. Without spoilers, what would you say is the one thing about the movie that is leading to this? Thanks. All right. Thanks a lot for sending that in, man. Appreciate that. And yeah, man, listen. I was telling you guys a little bit earlier, I have already gone to see Eternals now 3 times. I even drove an hour last night. Actually, last I checked, it was 53. Let's see if it's gone down anymore. Eternals, Rotten Tomatoes. Let's see where it's at now. It was at 53 last night. Has it dropped further? No, it's still at 53. So it is now, it's at 53% still on Rotten Tomatoes. So there you have it. I went to go see it. I liked it. And you guys know, as I've been talking about this from the very first screening I have of it, I said, I really liked it, but I don't know how people are going to react to this movie. Like when I came out of Shang-Chi, you guys remember this. When I came out of Shang-Chi, I was like, you're going to love this movie. You are going to love this movie. Like I was like very enthusiastic about that. I felt very confident about that. I'm like, people are going to love this. I mean, obviously no movie has everybody love it, but I was so confident that everybody was going to love Shang-Chi the moment I saw that movie. And sure enough, most people did. But when I came out of Eternals, I'm like, I really liked it. I mean, it's vast. It incredibly expands the universe of the MCU. It asks grand, philosophical, even religious questions, wonderful characters, all that kind of stuff. I said, but here's the thing. I don't know how other people are going to respond to this. I don't know how people are going to feel about this. And I've said in recent days, I'm not going to be surprised at all if Eternals ends up with a 90% audience rating. Right now, obviously, there's no audience rating because the film hasn't opened yet. But once the audience rating starts coming out, I will not be surprised in the least if it ends up having a 90+% audience rating, because it's that kind of movie. But I also said I'm also not going to be surprised if it's like a 60% or lower audience rating, because it's that kind of movie. Now, whenever a highly anticipated movie, like an MCU movie in Eternals, well, this is really the first time this has happened, but whenever a highly anticipated movie comes out and the critic scores end up being low, the one question everybody wants to ask is, what happened? What went wrong? Where was the magic bullet? What's the one thing? What was the one mistake that has led to this? That has led to not only it being the lowest rated Marvel film of all time, but with the trajectory it's on and at the pace it's going at, It could end up being not just the lowest rated Marvel film of all time. It could end up being the first Marvel movie that ends, I mean, there have been other Marvel projects that have been negatively reviewed, like under 50%, but this would be the first MCU movie to be under 50%. Now, whenever it comes up, I'm always quick to point out, right? Like you guys know, I'm always quick to point out, hey, yeah, it's the lowest one, but hey, it's still the majority of the critics like this movie. That's true. At 53%, that means the majority of critics who are seeing this movie like it. But that majority is sliding. That majority is shrinking. That majority is smaller today than it was yesterday, because yesterday it was at 56%. Today it's at 53%. You know, somebody wrote in and asked me the other day, John, I mean, it's only at whatever it was at the time. It's only at 59%, whatever, but it could go up. There's lots more reviews to come. I said, yeah, but there's already about 100 reviews, so it's not going to change too terribly drastically. Like once you get about 100 reviews, you get a general sense of what the consensus is. So you're not going to get a terribly big difference between 100 reviews and 500 reviews. It'll roughly be the same. But it's dropped even more than I thought it would out of that range. It's down 53%. If this trend continues, if it continues dropping like 2% a day, which it may not, but we're actually going to end up with a Marvel film that is not only the lowest critically rated one, it's going to be the first one ever that the majority of critics disliked it. Right now, and let's be clear, as of this moment, the majority of critics are still on the positive side. It has the majority of critics. 53% positive, 47% negative. It's still on the positive side. But it's not out of the realm of imagination that within the next couple of days, that could be below 50%. Just with the trend, because it was at like 60%, then it was like 58%, then 56%. Now it's 53% as more and more, and there's still probably another 100 reviews to come in. So they asked the question, what was it? What's the magic bullet? What's the thing that's causing this? I have a couple of ideas, but the first thing that has to be said is this. There is no one magic bullet. There's no one magic bullet. There is no one thing that's causing this, okay? I think there's probably a number of factors that are going. I think there's a number of things in this film that may strike certain critics in a negative way or make certain critics not enjoy it. But it's no one thing. There's no one thing. Some people are saying, it's because the expectations were too high coming out of Shang-Chi. Or some people are saying, it's just because they're getting tired of Marvel movies. Well, no. Don't make excuses. Don't make excuses. Somebody else doesn't like it. It's just that. This has nothing to do with the critics. Has nothing to do with them. It has to do with the movie itself. It always does. People not liking Man of Steel has nothing to do. It still breaks my heart when I say that. But it has nothing to do with the critics. It has to do with the movie. As magnificent as I personally think it is. Don't you worry, Henry. I still got your back. You're still my boy. All right. Anyway. So it's about the movie. It's not about the critics. I know everybody likes to make excuses and it makes them feel better when they say, well, it's just their fault that they don't like it. I know we love making excuses. We love to make it about the other person, but it's not. It's about the movie. Because even I, who really enjoy this movie, I've gone to see it 3 times. I'm going to go see it a 4th time on Thursday. I really like this movie. But even I, coming out of it, said, I don't know how other people are going to feel about it. And I believe there are a couple of things. I think there are a couple of things. Number one, to me, villains. And specifically, we're talking about the deviants. The deviants in this film, while I personally like the look of them very much, I've seen some people say, the CGI doesn't look good. I don't know what you're looking at because I think the CGI looks fantastic. Except, I will point this out. In one of the post-credit scenes, there is a bit of CGI, and you will know exactly what I'm talking about once you see it. There is a bit of CGI that I swear to God has come right out of 2005. Like this really, really questionable CGI that is in one of the post-credit scenes. We'll talk about that more specifically on Sunday when we do our open spoiler discussion for Eternals. By the way, don't forget, guys, Sunday, open spoiler discussion for Eternals. Hope you'll be there to join us. Anyway, but other than that, I actually think the CGI in this movie is exceptionally good. It's not the look of the deviants. It's just the nature of the character of the deviants. And I can't go into specifics because I don't want to give any spoilers away. But I will say this. I felt like with Thanos, I know it's not fair to point to like the greatest villain they've ever had in the MCU, but let's point at Thanos for a second. With Thanos, we understood Thanos. He had motivation. He had narrative weight to him. He had purpose. There's a lot of these different elements that doesn't just make a good villain, but makes a good character in a movie, right? The deviants in Eternals are like, ooh, monsters, bad. I mean, that's pretty much, ooh, monsters, bad. Oh, that thing's got lots of tentacles and teeth. Monster, bad. Monster bad, ladies and gentlemen. Teach your children anything, monster bad. And that seems to be the philosophy of Eternals. Now, again, I say that it's in the midst of what I think is a profoundly huge, beautiful, wide scope. I love the characters and their dynamics. I particularly love Kumail Nanjiani in this movie. I really did. But in all that, there's the deviants. I never really got on board, nor did the movie really ever give any weight to why the deviants or how the deviants. And even as you start to learn a little bit more about them, it just seems like rather they're just dropping some random facts in the movie without giving any weight to it. And because of that, as an audience member, you never really feel the weight of these villains or what they're supposed to be and represent. Even as they start to change throughout the movie, you don't care because their change doesn't make a lot of sense. At any rate, number one, the villains. I think they dropped the ball at the deviants. And that could be one of the factors why some people watching it, particularly people who have sensibilities, that the villain of the film, of any film, goes a long way to how good or bad the film is. And if you're one of those types of people, Eternals is going to be a struggle for you. Because I don't think they did a very good job with it. Okay, so that's one thing. The second thing that did not work negatively for me, but I can see it working negatively for a lot of people, is it is a radical change of direction in Marvel kind of storytelling. Now, you hear me praising this movie a lot from a perspective of glorious, fantastic inter-character relationships and dynamics, and expanding the cinematic universe in a way we never thought the MCU would go. Like when we first watched Tony Stark crawling out of a cave and he cobbled together some armor with a flamethrower, we never thought we would come across the creator of the universe, Arishem, the Celestial, as big as the planet himself. It makes everything else in the MCU feel rather small and insignificant. And here's the thing, and I'm not really spoiling anything because this is the very first thing that happens. The very first thing that happens, the screen goes dark, the movie's about to start. The very first thing that happens is some text scrolls on screen. So I'll tell you this is what you read in the first couple of seconds. Basically, it reorganizes our entire understanding of the Marvel universe, or of the universe itself that the Marvel movies take place in. Because the movie starts with text that lets us know, hey, there's these things, Celestials, and Arishem, the Prime Celestial, yeah, he created the universe. He created our sun, he created the earth, he created our entire universe. And that is the type of, what's the word I'm looking for? That's the type of thing that I don't think audiences go into a Marvel cinematic, like we just saw Shang-Chi, right? Woo! Fight on a bus! Dude with the sword arm! Chop, chop, chop! It's great! We're chopping things up with that sword arm! Chopping the pole in half, chopping the bus in half, chop, chop, chop! In the beginning, there was Arishem the Celestial, who created our universe and all life in it. It's a radical departure from what we've come to expect, like even in Guardians of the Galaxy. which expands how far out the story goes. But this is different. Like, this is a totally different beginning to trying to do a movie like this. And you could physically feel, for me, in the theater, like at least at the premiere, when I was at the premiere and those first words start, you could physically feel in the air a bunch of people feel uncomfortable. I don't think it's because of religious beliefs or anything like that. I think it was because of, this is not how we expect a Marvel movie to start. We're talking about creators and the genesis of the universe and how all life started, and this character, it made everything else feel really small instantly. Like, I'm sitting there in the premiere thinking, woo, so Infinity War and Endgame were kind of insignificant and pointless. We're talking about the creator of the universe now. A dude who was around before the Infinity Stones. So there's a heaviness to it as well, right? So that's one of the other things that I think. So I think you got from what I consider to be poor villains, probably hit a lot of people in a way. If the villains don't work, there's a lot of people that, hey, if the villains don't work, the movie doesn't work. And I think that's true for a lot of film fans and some film critics. I think that's true too. I think the startling and jarring change of direction for an MCU film like this one has, I think threw a lot of people off. I really do. And listen, I have seen movies that something happens in like the first 15 minutes of the movie that just got the movie off to a very jarring start for me, and I wasn't able to get back into the movie afterwards. That's happened to me. I'm sure it's happened to you on some films too. And I think maybe for some people, that movie did that for some people. So I think that's another thing there. And I'm going to say this. I don't know how much this is true of things. You know what? Let me say this isn't a third reason. Let me just throw this out there and acknowledge this is something some people are talking about. The fact of the matter is, this movie has a gay character in it. Has a gay character in it. And I've seen some people have the conversation, and I'm not saying I agree, nor am I saying I disagree. I'm just pointing out that you guys have seen these conversations, that there are maybe some people that aren't so happy that there's a gay character in the movie. I mean, but whether that had any impact at all on the fact that Eternals has a 53% right now, I'm not saying it does. I'm not saying it doesn't. All right. I'm just throwing that out there. That is something people are talking about. But these larger dynamics, these larger philosophical questions, huge, just cinematic issues of having a poor villain, those are the things that led me to coming out of the theater and saying, I don't know how other people are going to respond to this movie. I liked it a lot. Not nearly as much as Shang-Chi. It's not the best Marvel movie ever made that, you know, some people at Disney maybe thought it was going to be. Like, we've talked on the show, we've heard from people at Disney who say, you know, around Disney, we think Eternals is the best film we've ever made. And maybe that's true. Maybe they think that. I certainly don't. But again, I think it's a very good movie. I've seen it 3 times. I'm going to go see it a 4th. But these are the reasons to me that exist within the movie itself that I think might lead to the notion that it just didn't work for a lot of other people. And again, that's why I'm going to be very, very curious to see how well or how poorly the audience score on this movie ends up being. And I'm telling you what, guys, like when I saw Shang-Chi, obviously I was very excited to talk about it in a spoiler discussion. I cannot remember the last time I have been this excited to do a spoiler discussion than on Sunday for Eternals, because there's so much in there to talk about the things that some people are loving and some people aren't liking. Like I'm seeing debates and arguments between people about one issue in a movie, and people saying, oh yeah, that's what makes a movie awesome. And other people saying, no, that's what makes a movie suck. And it's like, they're talking about the same thing. It's crazy. So I cannot wait until Sunday to talk to you guys about it in an open spoiler environment, just to hear from you guys and what worked and what didn't work for you and how it hit you. For me, I think the movie's great. The character work, the dynamics, the scope, all these things worked for me. It's not for some other people. It's going to be interesting to see. Anyway, the question is for you guys. What do you think Right now, Eternals is sitting at 53%, which still means it's a positively reviewed movie. It still means the majority like it, but it's heading in the wrong direction, and it could end up being the first badly reviewed movie of the MCU. Do you think it'll go under that 50% threshold? Do you think it's going to hold where it is? Have you seen it yet? I know there have been some fan screenings. If so, did you like it? Did you not? Whatever you guys are thinking, jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys. With that down, we're going to try something a little bit different here. I mentioned that we were going to take a few minutes here to talk about, take some of your comments that you guys have on the issues we've been talking about and seeing what you guys think about them. Let me see if I can pop this out here and maybe get it on screen. Let's see here. Let's see if we can get this on screen. I'm not 100% sure that I can, but I'm going to try. Can I get it on screen? Oh, it looks like I might be able to get it on screen. Give me a second here. Okay. Well, let's try this. We are going to start off with, and then we're going to get into the questions you guys have sent in. But right now, we'll just read some of these comments you guys have sent. All right. We're starting here with, if I can get it brought up on screen. There it is. So we have King Tantic. We talked about sending a super chat badge. Thank you, King Tantic. Devi Parazd Shetty writes, seen Dune 3 times by now, and I can say that it is the most well-made movie of the year, and also my favorite movie this year till now. Going to see it, Eternals in IMAX on the 5th of November. I hope you have a good time. I really enjoyed Dune myself. I can't wait to go back and watch it again. All right, Savage McFilthy had sent in a super chat badge to be supportive. Thank you. Holland Love is saying that this is a great idea. They love the idea of doing this. Thanks you, Holland. Quiet Canvas writes, hello, Gio. Why do whiny boohoo babies refuse to believe Spider-Man is leaving the MCU? I see so many people that still absolutely refuse to believe it. Again, this is not to ask questions, but we already kind of addressed that in the topic a little bit earlier today. Thanks for sending that in, Quiet. Luke1234 writes, John, when are you seeing Last Night in Soho? I was waiting for Anne to get back. Anne gets back tonight, so hopefully I'm going to have a chance to see it. Well, I won't see it tomorrow because I'm watching Eternals again tomorrow, but hopefully Saturday or Sunday, going to have a chance to see it. Jose Garcia writes, with the impending union vote at the time, what better way to set off a strike by proving work safety is not taken too seriously? I mean, is it a part of a grander scheme by IATSE? I can't believe that. But I mean, if it did turn out to be that, that would make a movie of the week. Nathan Lovin writes, John Wick was a small budget film and they used CGI effects to mimic live fire. I don't understand why they couldn't do the same. Here's the thing. It is cheaper to CGI in muzzle flashes and gun smoke than it is to try to actually do it live on a set. It's actually easier and less expensive, so I agree with that. All right, Ms. Marvel writes, from the bottom of my heart, I thank you and appreciate all you have done. Oh, thank you, Ms. Marvel. It's very nice of you to say. Appreciate that. Casey Mack writes in, to be honest, I think Spidey leaving the MCU might be good because he wouldn't have to rely on other MCU characters to save the day. He would have to be the hero we all know and love. I mean, I agree. Look, I have surprisingly enjoyed his interaction with all the other things. I even liked him with Tony Stark. I really did. But it would be kind of cool to see him more on his own. That would be nice. Stiff Meister writes, Spider-Man is staying in the MCU. Spider-Man is the reason Sony got the rights to their superheroes for games on PlayStation and not Microsoft. I don't see, you understand though, movie rights and game rights, theme park rights and television rights, live action rights or animation rights, they're all different and separate things. You can't always see them as being crossed over. But keep that in mind, Stiffs. You might be right. Who knows? Bright Burns 1985 writes, I think it's a good idea. I think it's good for Spider-Man to leave the MCU because there's so many characters in the MCU who overshadow the Spider-Man character. I mean, that is one of the things that I also like about the idea of Spider-Man going over to Sony is that Spider-Man doesn't get lost in the shuffle if he goes back over to Sony. The Marvel MCU is already overcrowded and we're just about to get tons more characters brought in. Not just with all the Disney Plus shows, we got Fantastic Four coming, and then we've got like 100 characters from X-Men coming. It's going to get even more crowded. Really Tired 64 writes, if Spider-Man goes 100% back to Sony, I guess Happy and Aunt May will have to break up. Maybe yes, maybe no. I still think if he does go back over to Sony, I think a number of characters go over with him. I do. But I don't know. Well, whether that would be happy, I don't know. We'll have to see. Rampage Predacon just sent in a super chat badge. Thank you, Rampage. Appreciate that, man. Where are we at? Phil Corvelli writes, I'm actually glad that Spider-Man might be going back to Sony. I want him to handle situations by himself without the help of Avengers/S.H.I.E.L.D. I agree. I think that is one of the upsides of him going back over. You could do that with him in the MCU, but they seem to refuse to do that. But that would be one of the positives. I see that. So I agree with you, Phil. JJ Dog Loya writes, what the hell makes you theorize Patrick Stewart will be in No Way Home? Nope. I told you I'm not answering that. I'm going to be doing that in its own video in the next couple of days, maybe early next week. I'm going to save my theory about Patrick Stewart being in Spider-Man No Way Home until early next week. Because I've told you I want to make that in its own separate little video. So we'll see. All right. Casey Mack writes, to be honest, I don't really care or follow Rotten Tomatoes ratings. I'm still going to go see this movie. And if I love the movie, I love it. If I don't, I don't. Yeah, listen, Rotten Tomatoes ratings are not there. Like I'm amazed at how many people misunderstand what Rotten Tomatoes is and what its purpose is and what it actually does for us. But Rotten Tomatoes is not there to tell you that you will or will not like something. It gives us a sense of what the general consensus is amongst this vast diversity of film critics out there. And it just kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of what to maybe expect going in. And I find a lot of value in that. So I think it's great. Anyway, Peter Cunnington writes, I'm seeing Eternals still. I think a lot of people, listen, I initially thought Eternals would make like $50 million opening weekend. And I'm still going to stand on that. But there are a lot of numbers coming out that are suggesting $70 to $80 million opening weekend, which could very well be the case. I'm still going to lean towards 50, but we'll see how many people still go see it, man. All right. Randy Swaimatsu writes, have you ever seen A Boy and His Dog? I just found it after about 20 years, a little cheesy, but one of those near B movies I can still watch. Bring on the filthy. Well, thanks for writing that in, but this isn't the place for asking questions and stuff like that. And that's kind of off topic. But yes, I have seen A Boy and His Dog. I have. All right. Q Fox writes, I saw Eternals today and I really quite liked it. Oh, I'm glad you did. Well, Q Fox, please come back for the spoiler discussion on Sunday and let me know what it is you liked about it. I'd be curious to hear that. Charlie Jeffrey Hood writes, do you think there are other MCU movies that should have been rated rotten before Eternals? Well, no, there's no such thing as something that should be rated rotten or should be. I mean, it's up to the diversity of the critics about whether other people like it or not. For me, if I didn't know what critic ratings there were on any movies out there, that of all the existing MCU movies, and I had to guess if any of the MCU movies would have rotten scores or not, I would guess Iron Man 2 and Thor: The Dark World. I would guess, if I didn't know, I would guess that those two would have been rated rotten. So yeah, we'll see. All right, next up. CJ Adams writes, I think critics have been too disconnected from normal audiences now. That's bullshit. Can I just say that is such a bullshit thing that people say with absolutely no rationale behind it whatsoever. I've been hearing people say for 30 years, critics are disconnected from the audiences. Meanwhile, 95% of movies come out, the critics and the audiences end up their ratings being in the same quadrant as each other, like 95% of the time. All right? Audiences loved Endgame. Critics loved Endgame. Audiences loved Jojo Rabbit. Critics loved Jojo Rabbit. Audiences loved Wonder Woman. Critics loved Wonder Woman. Audiences loved, I don't know, I'm trying to pick another one. Days of Future Past. Critics love Days of Future Past. 95% of the time, they're in the same quadrant. And every once in a while, because movies are subjective, you will get some differences. Subjectivity demands that there would be. But this whole bullshit thing of critics are disconnected. You don't know any critics. They're not. I know a lot of them. And none of them are disconnected from the audience. Anyway. Whatever. They just have their own individual opinions, just like every individual fan has their own individual opinions as well. That's just the way it is. Anyway, it feels like cultural barriers there. No. Example, Dave Chappelle, The Closer. What does that have to do with a movie? Anyway, so I'm not trying to bag on you, CJ. I'm just saying I strongly disagree with your sentiment. But there's that. Anyway. Thunder Knight writes, an MCU movie getting a rotten rating on Rotten Tomatoes was bound to happen at some point. No, you're absolutely right. It's inevitable. Like you cannot be 50-0 in making movies. It's impossible. It was bound to happen. Hasn't happened yet, but it is bound to happen. Bobby Jackson writes, well, with the current Score for Eternals. Maybe now people will second guess calling out critics for being paid off by Disney. Oh, no. You're assuming those types of people have any sort of logic. They don't. Like critics, I remember critics are paid to hate on DC movies. Then Wonder Woman comes out, which was fantastic. It's fantastic. Critics gave it huge scores. That didn't stop them from saying, well, they just didn't get paid this time to say that they didn't like a DC movie. And because they didn't get paid this time to say that they didn't like, seriously, they'll find a way to rationalize around it. So there's just no trying to be rational with people like that. Don't even worry about it. Don't even bother. All right. Let's see. Next up, where are we at? We've got Mike Hill writes, possible Sinister Six being set up. Do you think, again, this is not for you to ask me questions. This is for you to give your observations, stuff like that, but anything's possible. Kylo Ken writes, John, in my opinion, the reason Spidey will leave the MCU is that by the end of No Way Home, not only will they have forgotten who Spider-Man is, they'll also forget Peter. Woo! I'll tell you what, Kylo, I hadn't even thought about that. That's not a bad theory. Because in the trailer, we see them trying to cast a spell, casting a spell that would make people forget that he's Spider-Man, and something goes wrong. Maybe one of the things that go wrong, they just forget him altogether. I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen, but I think it's a very, very interesting theory that you put out there. So yeah, that's very cool. Okay, guys. Thank you for that. By the way, so that was a little new segment of at the end of the main topics, taking your commentary on any of the not questions, but commentary on any of the topics that we just talked about. Did you like that little segment before we roll into the questions? Let me know. Email me at john@thejohncampeashow.com or fire in a comment. If it didn't work for you, we won't do it again. If it worked, maybe we'll do it some more. All right. Well, with that down, guys, let's now actually go over and start taking your user-submitted questions, shall we? And once again, if you want to send in a user-submitted question to be read on this show or in an upcoming companion video, simply go down into the description of this video and you'll see a tip link. Click on that there or enter it in manually at www.streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. Once again, you'll be getting your comment or question answered on one of the shows if we consider them appropriate to be used on the shows. And of course, you'll be supporting the channel at the same time. All right, let's get on over to it here. Film Fan writes, John, have you ever watched a movie that doesn't linked in any way, but then watching it feels like they are? Oh, absolutely. Especially, for example, Train to Busan and World War Z. I never thought about that, actually. Also, working on my first film with my 13-year-old son based on his idea. Thanks to you and Rob, we said, why not? That's awesome. Everybody should make their own movie. All right. You guys have heard me say this. Let me go over to the live chat here. Do you guys know what answer I'm going to give now? So Film Fan Rant was just asking, are there two disconnected movies that are not associated together, but they feel like they're actually connected to each other? Let me see if you guys know what I'm going to say, because I actually have two answers. One primary answer, one secondary answer that I have mentioned before. I want to see if you guys know what it is I'm talking about. I'm not seeing any. Somebody saying Inception, Tenet. No, that's not one to me. Ben Rayner got my secondary one. My secondary one is Terminator and The Matrix. Think about it. If you think about The Matrix, and then you think about the future in Terminator, where Skynet takes over the world, the machines take over, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff, you could make an argument that those two films are actually connected. All right, I'm not seeing anybody get the one I'm actually going to say, and it's this one. The one that I most think of when somebody says two disconnected films that are actually, but they feel like, K Major just got it. K Major just got it. They are, and Brian Villanueva got the second part to it as well. Man in the Iron Mask with John Malkovich and Leonardo DiCaprio, and The Three Musketeers with Kiefer Sutherland and Charlie Sheen. It feels like The Three Musketeers is the original movie, the Kiefer Sutherland one. And then I swear, if you want, and I have watched these movies back to back, and then it feels like Man in the Iron Mask is the sequel to Three Musketeers 25 years later. It really does. It feels like it's one story. And so if you haven't had a chance to check those out, you should. But yeah, can you guys think of some other ones? Throw them down in the comment section. I want to see what you guys say. All right, next up, we got Joe Fayant, who writes, fun fact, the picture of Tobey Maguire in the Morbius trailer is actually from the Spider-Man PlayStation 4/5 game. You can wear that suit in the game, and when the game loads, that is one of the loading screens you can get Spidey in that pose. Well, actually, while that is true, what is also true is that it is clearly, this is a still, see, look at the picture. Let me see if I can get in on this a little bit. I'm going to see if I can get in a little bit more on this. So if you look at this picture, that is the exact image. This is the exact image of this. And this is from the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man. Now, I'm sure there's a shot in the video game because I've heard people say that this one over here looks just like it's from the video game. And it does look a lot like from the video game. It does. But when you look at the pose, even look at the fingers. Look at the fingers. It's the exact same portrait. So I think it isn't a, it may be exactly from this. So I mean, I don't know. By the way, I didn't make this image. Just so you guys know, this image here, this comparison image, I didn't make it. That isn't from me. But it is an exact replica of some of the stuff in the game, because this is one of the few PlayStation games I have, is the Spider-Man game. But it is also an exact replica, it seems like, from the movie. So we'll see which one it's really going from. All right. Next up, we got, where are we at? We're at Morgan Holmes, who writes, this movie looks insane. Jared Leto is going to nail this one. Fingers crossed. We get a cameo of Blade post credits in a good way to set up a team of the two. I'm not a fan of the Sinister Six. I would rather have Blade and Morbius movie. I don't believe, I've seen a lot of people speculate that we're going to see Blade in Morbius, and that does make a lot of logical sense. I mean, it seems like a perfect fit, but I don't think so. Ooh, and I wish I could tell you why I don't think so. You'll know soon enough. But there's a very specific reason why I don't think. Not that I know, I'm saying why I don't think. There's a very specific reason why I don't think you're going to see Blade in Morbius. And it's going to come out pretty soon. And we'll talk about it on the show once it comes out. And it's going to be shortly. Like shortly, something's going to come out. That is not world-shaking news. I'm just saying something's going to come out that will let you know why I don't believe that we're going to see Blade in Morbius. We'll have to wait for that. We're going to have to wait just a couple of days, maybe a week at most. And it's something will come out, and we'll be able to talk about that a little bit more. All right, next up. Where are we at? JR69 writes, hey, John, the other day you were discussing the resurgence of Brendan Fraser. Yes. Like you, I'm glad to see him back. When discussing Fraser, you mentioned many of his films, but not my favorite. I think Gods and Monsters is one I did leave out. You're right. I think Gods and Monsters was an excellent film, and Brendan was great in it. Brendan was great in that, with the great Ian McKellen as well. I believe it's based on a true story. The dynamic and the chemistry between Ian McKellen and Brendan Fraser was fantastic. This is back when Brendan Fraser was in very different physical shape than he is today, but he was terrific in it. Like, my favorite Brendan Fraser performance is Still with Honors. Like, that's the movie to me that really highlights how good of an actor he is. But you're right, he was great in Gods and Monsters as well, JR. Good for you for bringing that up. Okay, next up. Regan Crisp writes, 1 of 3. Writing this before the show, so I'm not sure if you're going to have mentioned this. During the new Morbius trailer, they show us the Oscorp Tower, and I knew that style of text was familiar, so I looked up all the previous Oscorp logos from the Raimi trilogy, Amazing Spider-Man, and even the PlayStation games. And the logo they used in this new trailer is a perfect match for the Amazing Spider-Man. Although this doesn't confirm anything, it's very strong evidence that it takes place in the Amazing Spider-Man universe, and may also be indirect evidence that Andrew may show up in No Way Home. Maybe yes, maybe no. Like you have always believed that Toby and Andrew will show up, but agree that there is no evidence. What are your thoughts? Yeah, so again, going back to this picture that somebody else made and brought up on and sent to me on Twitter. Yeah, the Oscorp thing, we were talking about this the other day, that the Oscorp thing in the Morbius trailer is a direct match to the one in the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man universe. So yes, just another little thing for us to go, it's just another one of those things. So we'll see, Regan. Good for you for catching that. Jay Bling writes, you brought up that before John Wick, there were Boondock Saints. Yes, indeed. I read that Boondock Saints 3 is working with John Wick's stunt team 8711. I didn't know that. Also, I'm curious if the following names will be back. Willem Dafoe, Julie Benz, and Clifton Collins Jr. You know, I actually had, I kid you not, sorry, little short side story. You guys know that two of my favorite people in the industry are Mark Neveldine and Brian Taylor, the guys who wrote and directed the Jason Statham Crank films. Anyway, one year at Comic-Con, I was having breakfast. We were in San Diego, and I was supposed to go have breakfast with Mark Neveldine, one of the directors. So I went to this restaurant at the time I was supposed to meet him. And he's like, I sit down with him. He goes, hey man, I hope you don't mind, but another buddy of mine is in town and I invited him to come have breakfast with us. I'm like, sure, that's cool. And about 2 minutes later, Clifton Collins Jr. walks in and he comes down and sits down with us. So I can actually say I had breakfast with Clifton Collins Jr. once. Anyway, that was a side story. No. For me, the big question, like I know the brothers are coming back and all that kind of stuff, and the directors come back. I want to know if Willem Dafoe's coming back, if they're going to find a way to bring Willem Dafoe back. That's what I'm really curious about that one. I really, really am. All right, next up. Let's see. BK Dan writes, John, Chris Pratt doing a Garfield movie? That's $1 billion idea. That buys a lot of lasagna. Yeah, listen, I actually, Chris Pratt is showing. Every time he's cast to do a voice in an animated movie, I go, really? Like for Lego Movie, I was like, really? But then that turned out great. And then in Onward, the Pixar film, I was like, really? But he was great in that. I also feel like, really? He's doing the voice of Garfield? But I'm okay with that. I just more question why they're making a Garfield movie at all, to be honest. All right, next up, Kristen writes, John, how often is the director of the film paid more than the highest paid actor on set? Why or why not? Thanks for all you do, brother. Well, I actually think you sent in this exact question, I think yesterday too. I think you may have sent in this exact question. Same thing though. They don't often publicize how much a director makes. So I don't really know. Now, on a very rare occasion, we find out what some directors make, like Christopher Nolan. Like Christopher Nolan makes more money than his actors do. At least he does now, because he's able to demand not only a really good salary, but he also gets like percentage of the gross of the box office, which is very rare. It's not rare for people to get some points on a movie, but to get a percentage of the gross of the box office is extremely rare. So I don't really know how often a director gets paid more than the actors do, because that's not often publicized. My guess is it does happen, but it's you probably guessing pretty rare. Just like I'm sure it happens that sometimes a coach on an NFL team is the highest paid staff member, but most of the time the pro star athletes will be the ones that get paid more. So that's my guess though. That's my guess. All right, next up. Brojo Saved writes, with Marvel getting its first Rotten Tomatoes, some people are calling it the DC curse of trying something new. I don't believe that DC had a hard track record because of the experimenting, do you? But due to terribly unfaithful versions of the heroes. No, it makes no difference. Like, it's always funny. Look, honestly, when it comes to movie, it doesn't mean squat how faithful they are to the comic books. It does not matter. It doesn't matter. All that matters is you make a good movie that people enjoy. The general movie-going audience doesn't care if this movie, the character was just like the way they are in the comic book, because the 95% of the audience has never read a comic book with that character in it. It just comes down to, did they make a good movie? That's it. Did they make a good movie? That's the only question. Did they make a movie that the general audience was going to like and appreciate? That the majority of the general audience was going to like and appreciate? And that's the only issue. The audience does not care if you make them faithful to the comic book. They don't care. All they care about is it a good movie? Did they buy a ticket, go in, sit down, watch it, and have a good time? It's all that matters to them. It's all that matters. All right, next up. Let's see here. Crazy Joe Megapodtastic writes, I heard there's a deleted scene in Dune where Jason Momoa's Duncan, Idaho trips and falls in the sand. When he stands up, everybody points and yells, "Hey, looks, it's Sandy Duncan." You talking about the Broadway and film actress Sandy Duncan? That's a deep cut. You're welcome. All right, Crazy Joe, thanks for sending that in, man. Okay, next up. Gruffy301 writes, could we see Blade/Deadpool and other slightly R-rated Disney Marvel characters appear in or be part of Sony's Spider-Verse? It keeps the fans happy with the R rating. By the way, a little secret, the majority of people do not care if a movie has an R rating. There are pockets of fandom online that do, yes, that for some reason think R equals better when it doesn't. It doesn't make it worse either. I'm just saying it is what it is. But the vast, vast, vast majority of the fans do not care. The vast, vast, vast majority of moviegoers don't care. To them, making it R makes it better. So that won't appeal to the average film fan more than anything else. There are some hardcore fans that maybe it will, but I think for the most part, it doesn't. But at any rate, be a part of Sony Spider-Verse. It keeps the fans happy with the R rating and gives Disney the chance to use Spider-Man more. A happy medium for all size. I mean, it's possible, Guffrey, but the thing is this. Kevin Feige has already said, number one, Deadpool will be R-rated over at Disney. But he's also said he's the only one who's going to be rated R at Disney. I think there was a story a little while ago that came out that was basically Blade is going to be PG-13. And that's perfectly fine. You can make a great Blade movie with it being PG-13. You just, when Blade is cutting off the heads of vampires, you just don't show a lot of red blood and you're good. Like, that's the thing. People forget in movies, you can do unspeakable violence in a PG-13 movie as long as that unspeakable violence is either being done against monsters, robots, or aliens. You can like cut them in half. You can rip out their throats. You can cut their heads off. You can do a lot in a PG-13 movie as long as the victims of that violence are aliens, monsters, or robots. If they're any of those things, you're pretty much good. And then there's another category to that. You look at Venom 2. A lot of people get murdered in Venom 2. There's a lot of murder. There are a lot of people who are alive at the beginning, like they subscribe to life. And then before the end of the movie, they've unsubscribed from life and are dead. Do you see what I'm saying? Many, many murders in Venom. A lot of killing. The thing that was able to let it keep a PG-13 movie is that as Venom was, bashing people against concrete and all that kind of stuff, there weren't blood splatters on the thing. As long as you don't have blood splatters, you can get away with a lot of violence against human characters too. A lot of violence against human characters, as long as there's not blood splatter when you do it. But if Blade is going to go to town and just wreck shop on a lot of vampires and monsters, as long as he doesn't say fuck a lot and we don't see titties, then you can do a good Blade. You can do a good Blade movie. You can do a really good Blade movie. So would it also work as R? Absolutely. But can it work as a PG-13? It absolutely can. But so we'll see. All right, next up. Peruvian Legend writes, I need your help. My girlfriend is studying abroad in Spain and won't be back until mid-January of 2022, which thankfully is not all that far away. I'm not in a position to travel to her, but we are really trying to watch No Way Home together. I'm willing to wait for her. How do I avoid spoilers without going on my phone at that point? All right. So I have a great solution for you. Okay, so look, if I'm understanding your quandary properly, your girlfriend is in Spain right now. You guys want to watch No Way Home together. Gotcha. But how do you avoid spoilers until January of 2022 until she gets back? All right. Here's my romantic relationship, movie watching, spoiler avoiding piece of advice to you. All right. Are you ready? Here we go. Lie. You go and watch Spider-Man No Way Home and you deny that you did it. I will not often endorse nor encourage the idea of lying in romantic relationships. Not at all. I don't normally endorse that at all. But brother, you lie. Because I'm going to tell you right now, unless you are going to close the doors, turn off your lights, and disconnect your internet, you ain't going to be able, you might be able to avoid Spider-Man No Way Home spoilers for the first couple of days. You might be able to do that. You totally might. But after that, there's no way. You just can't. Like, I wish I had an answer to you. It's like, oh, it is simple. If you want to avoid spoilers for a movie, simply, press this button and you won't get spoilers. I wish that existed. It does not. So my advice to you is either do one of two things. Option number one is accept the fact that you are going to see and know the spoilers in the movie before your girlfriend gets back. You just got to, that's your first option. You just have to accept that now, because there's no way you're going to be able to get to mid-January without hearing about it. Your second, if that is not an acceptable option to you, and that is something that you're like, I cannot wait until, I cannot hear spoilers. I cannot accept that. I cannot hear spoilers before I see this movie. Well, then your other option is the good old reliable standby for men in relationships for centuries. Lie. And if she finds out you did, I didn't tell you to do it. And if Ann is watching this video, Ann is in Cupertino right now at Apple headquarters. And Ann, baby, if my wife is watching this right now, I want you to know I have never done that to you. Not once have I told you that I would wait to watch the next episode of the show and then snuck down and watched it while you were at work. I've never done that, baby. Never once. I'm giving somebody else some other advice. Don't listen to this. Don't listen to this at all. It's never happened. But yeah, lie, my friend. Lie. By the way, our friend Ben Rayner sends in a $10 super chat badge in the live chat. Appreciate that, man. All right. Next up. Or just accept that you're going to get spoiled. That's the only other option I see. Puerto Rican writes, hey, John, would you illustrate how does a movie that drops in theaters and streaming at the same time flops, but a movie or show that drops on streaming is only a success? I never quite understood how streaming works and how it finds success. Thanks. All right. So here's, without going into a lot, because it would take 15 minutes to go into in depth, but basically this, there is only one metric of success for a show on a streaming network, and it's not views. It's not views. Some people say, that got 1.8 million viewers. Well, that's a failure. That got 4 million viewers. That's a success. That means nothing to the streaming companies. Nothing. It means nothing. See, it did matter in traditional broadcast television because more viewership equaled bigger sponsorship dollars, which means more viewers equals more money. That's under the old traditional broadcast television model. And of course, that still exists. We still have ABC, Fox, NBC, things like that. They're still very successful. In the streaming world, though, viewership does not equal money. As a matter of fact, it costs you money because you're causing more bandwidth. And where is it? Line O Lifes in the live chat just got it. It's subscriptions gained. Subscriptions gained. That is the only moniker of success when it comes to a streaming network judging if a television thing they've put on has benefited them. Has benefited them. Here's the thing. A streaming network like Netflix would much rather see a show have 1 million viewers that got them 500,000 new subscribers than a show have 10 million viewers and got them 100,000 subscribers. And that would never have made sense in the traditional broadcast television model. In the broadcast television model, it's always more viewers equals more money. But to Netflix, they would rather a show get 1 million views but 500,000 new subscribers than 10 million views and 100,000 subscribers. They would rather take the 1 million views thing. That is the only metric of success for these streaming things. So that's kind of the key marker there. One of the big distinctions between the day and date releases with movies and their regular television shows and and that's why Netflix will cancel shows that are hugely popular. Like, it's been a big topic of conversation lately. It's like, man, Netflix is just always canceling popular shows. You want to know why? Because they stopped bringing in new subscribers. Because they stopped bringing in new subscribers. Hey, this show's run for 3 seasons, great, and it's hugely popular, great. But it's not bringing in new subscribers anymore. Everybody who is interested in this show has already subscribed. Is not bringing new subscribers, but it's our number 1 show. Doesn't matter. Cancel it. That's why. Anyway, there's a much broader discussion we had there, but we don't have time for that. But anyway, it's a great question, Puerto Rican. All right, next up, Ben Rayner writes, regarding Tim Allen's voice in Lightyear, in Toy Story world, the Buzz is a toy. Tim plays a voice actor who voices Buzz. In Lightyear, it's based on the real Buzz, who really goes to space. That's why they got Evans, in my opinion. Anyway, maybe wrong, but that's a guess. No, that's a good guess. So the idea of Buzz Lightyear, by the way, Nightspeed sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, Nightspeed. Appreciate that. It's a good theory. So my understanding is this, is that in the Pixar universe, Buzz Lightyear is a toy based on a Buzz Lightyear franchise that has a Buzz Lightyear movie. And the movie we're about to watch in 2022 is that movie that the toy Buzz Lightyear was made from. Now, you could have still had Tim Allen do the voice, because for a lot of the toys today, like my wife used to work at Hasbro, right? When they made toys based on movie properties, they would get the actual actor from the movie to voice some lines. And so when you press the button on Star-Lord's chest on the Star-Lord toy, you would actually hear Chris Pratt's voice come out of it. So theoretically speaking, you still could have had Tim Allen do the voice, but I think it represented a younger Buzz. I don't know. We'll see. I will get a better idea, Ben, once we see the movie. All right. An anonymous viewer writes, hey, John, Chris Evans is playing the human Buzz Lightyear that the Tim Allen toy is based on. Technically, there are 2 different characters. One is a real person in the Pixar world. The other is a toy based on that real person. No, in the Pixar world, there is not a real Star Command. That's obviously a science fiction story. There's not actual real intergalactic battles going on in the same world that Andy grew up in. So I think it's more likely that it's the movie idea. I think it's still more likely that's the movie idea. All right, next up, Ben Rayner writes, hey, John. Well, I did it. I completed my 100 movies in 100 days. I even ranked 1 through 10 my favorites. Number 1, Eight-Legged Freaks. Really? I didn't like Eight-Legged Freaks. Anyway, 2, Free Guy. Love it. 3, The Thing. 4, The Birds. 5, Awakenings. I like Awakenings. 6, Another You. 7, Happy Death Day. That was one of my really big surprises. Oh, yours is Happy Death Day to You. I didn't like that one as much as the first Happy Death Day, but whatever. Number 8, The Shining. Number 9, Us. 10, Rumble in the Bronx. This was a fun project. I might do it again sometime. What are your thoughts on my list? Just curious to hear them. Thanks for all you do and keep bringing the filthy. Well, thanks so much for that, Ben. Yeah, listen, I love that little project. I believe Ben's project was getting through and watching 100 movies in 100 days that he had never seen before. And correct me, Ben, I know you're in the live chat there. Just correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was your project, right? To see 100 movies in 100 days, but those movies are all movies that you had not seen before. So he's not ranking his greatest, his favorite movies of all time. And Ben is saying in the live chat, yes, correct. First of all, can I just say, I think for any hardcore film fan, that is a fabulous little project to undertake. That's a fabulous project. To take 100 movies I have not seen and watch them in 100 days, I think that is a tremendous project to do. I really do. I think that's fantastic. And by the way, guys, you know what? Here's a little idea. Here's an idea for you, free of charge. Here's an idea. You know, I'm always saying, I think all film fans should be involved in either podcasting or blogging or YouTubing or whatever. Here's a nice little exercise. Take on that project that Ben Rayner just did and chronicle your journey going through those. Say, okay, here's my 100 movies in 100 days, or maybe 100 movies this year. 100 movies in 100 days might be very tough to pull off, like Ben did, but maybe 100 movies in 2022. Maybe create a little free blog somewhere like on WordPress or something like that, or create a YouTube channel and say, hey, this is just for me chronicling my journey, getting through 100 movies I've never seen in this year. And then just share your thoughts as you're going. I think a lot of film fans would like that, to share that journey. Maybe some will start following along with you. I think it's a great idea that you did there, Ben. So congratulations on getting through that. Okay, next up. We've got, that was Ben Rayner. All right. Casey McNatt writes, 1 of 3. You know, John, at first I didn't like the theory you are having of the Spider-Man leaving the MCU, but over the weeks I've come to consider it, and I'm actually starting to feel like he should leave the MCU. If he does leave the MCU, then maybe, just maybe, we can get a Spider-Man that we have known and love, a hero that didn't have to depend on people like Tony Stark and Doctor Strange to save his skin. Now, true, he did beat Vulture and Mysterio, I guess by himself, but with no possibility, no more MCU cameos in any more Spider-Man films could possibly not happen. Spider-Man is a great single hero. He didn't need help to defeat most of his villains. So I guess if Spidey does leave the MCU, that would be something to look forward to. And I agree, Casey. Like, to me, that's not a deal breaker. Like, obviously, it's not a deal breaker because that happens a lot in the MCU, but I really love Spider-Man in the end. He's been great there. But I think that would be one of the refreshing changes. He would literally, listen, Spider-Man right now in the MCU, here's the reality. Spider-Man is he gets lost in the crowd there. Spider-Man gets lost in the crowd in the MCU. If Spider-Man leaves the MCU and goes into Sony, Spider-Man becomes the top dog of that cinematic universe. He becomes the guy of that cinematic universe. And I think that could be very good for the character. And so, again, I don't mind if they keep him in the MCU. And like we said earlier, there's some very good reasons to believe that they may keep him in the MCU. And that's great. But one of the advantages if he goes over there, he'll go from being just another one of 100 characters running around in the MCU to going over to the Sony Spider-Verse, and suddenly he's the top character. He is the big dog. He becomes the standard by everything else in that universe gets measured. And I think that could be kind of interesting to see for Spider-Man. Anyway. Next up, Mr. Gux writes, hey, John, have you seen the rumors that Namor is appearing in Black Panther? Yes, and none of those rumors are coming from reliable sources, and I don't believe it. It could happen. Don't get me wrong. I'm on record right now. It's possible. It's possible, but right now, if you're going to ask me if I believe or don't believe it, I don't believe it, but whatever. As the main villain also, will he have Aztec origins and be portrayed by Tenoch Huerta from The Purge? Thoughts? I mean, now you're getting to X actor playing X role. Who cares about any of that? The bottom line is this. I have seen those rumors. I don't believe those rumors. It doesn't mean it's not possible. It's possible, but I really don't think they're going to go in that direction. But you never know. You never know. All right. Mr. Burns writes, 1 of 2. John, I just want to say it really is a shame that people are already judging a movie as bad when they haven't seen it. They are just taking the word from a bunch of critics. If Eternals is bad, well, then it's bad in people's opinions. But how can people say a movie is bad when they haven't seen it? All I'm saying is go see the movie before you make opinions whether the movie is good or bad. Well, I mean, there's truth to what you're saying, Mr. Burns, but not entirely. So what I do agree with is the fact that it does drive me crazy when people say that movie sucks. And I'm like, oh, you've seen it? No. Well, okay, then you can't say it sucks. You can say that movie looks like it sucks. You can say that. That's totally fair. Or you can say that movie sounds terrible, or that movie looks terrible. That movie looks awful. That movie looks bad. You can say that. That's all fair. If you haven't seen the movie, that's all fair things to say. But it's not just a matter of semantics. You say you should not say that movie is bad if you haven't seen the movie. So, and it probably is just a lot. I think when people say, I think the majority of people, when they say that movie's terrible, what they're probably saying is, look, everything I've seen and heard about that movie is terrible and it looks terrible to me. That's probably what they're saying, but they're simplifying the language and saying, oh yeah, that movie's bad. they shouldn't say it that way because they haven't seen the movie. You're right. But I think most of the time what they're meaning to say is that it looks terrible. They've heard it's terrible or all that kind of stuff. So, and that is fair to say. That part is fair to say. All right. Next up, we've got Super Korean who writes, John. I heard one of my favorite books of all time, Hyperion, is being adapted into a film. Is this true? No idea. If so, I really cannot wait. Sorry, guys, getting a message from my wife, Anne, whom I'm hoping she didn't see what I said on the show. No, she's texting me about something else entirely. John lives another day. Okay, sorry. I really cannot wait for this film to hit the big screen. This has me buzzing with excitement. I'm not going to lie to you. I have no idea what Hyperion is. I've never read the book Hyperion. I have no idea what that is, and I've never heard of that. But you've now put it on my radar, Super Korean. You've now got it on my radar, so I will keep my eye open for that. If I hear any information about it, we'll be sure to talk about it. Thanks for sending that in, dude. Bailey Alger writes, hello, have you ever seen the movie Walk the Line with Joaquin Phoenix and the morning show? Why am I freezing? Reese Witherspoon. That's right. Have you ever seen the movie Walk the Line starring Joaquin Phoenix and Reese Witherspoon? Yes. Not only is it my favorite movie of all time, being a huge Johnny Cash fan, but it's such a wonderful story that reminds me of my Uncle Mike. May he rest in peace. Yeah, Walk the Line's awesome. I actually think it's the movie. Look, Joaquin Phoenix was already great before that. I think Walk the Line was the movie that made the wider demographic of film fans go, whoa, Joaquin Phoenix is really good. Because he kind of got overshadowed a bit in like Gladiator, even though he got an Academy Award nomination in Gladiator. But he kind of got overlooked a little bit because of Ridley Scott, because Russell Crowe won Best Actor and all that kind of stuff. But I think it was Walk the Line that made the vast majority of film fans go like, whoa, wow, this dude is really good. Really good. So yeah. And and I think, correct me if I'm wrong in the live chat, guys, but I think that Reese Witherspoon actually won the Academy Award for Walk the Line. I could be wrong about that. At minimum, she was nominated, but I think she won the Academy Award for Walk the Line. I could be wrong. Oh, Tyler Hoffman is saying, yes, she did. Mark Newman is saying, she thinks so. And Jen McMahon is saying, yes, she did. So there you go. Yeah. So she actually won the Academy Award for that. Great movie. Fantastic movie. Walk the Line. All right. Wes Maurer writes, hey, John, hearing that Robert Downey Jr. and Matt Damon have joined the cast of Oppenheimer reminded me that this is somewhat of an Adjustment Bureau reunion for Matt Damon and Emily Blunt. I totally forgot about that. Just wanted to get your thoughts on the Adjustment Bureau. Yeah, the Adjustment Bureau is kind of a mind-bendy kind of movie. It's like, oh, the world that you think is real is actually being controlled by all these. Adjustment Bureau is a pretty interesting film. There was great chemistry between Damon and Emily Blunt. I totally forgot about that movie. Not my favorite movie of theirs, but it's interesting. But the two of them definitely had great chemistry in it. So yeah, I totally, well pointed out, Wes Maurer. Well pointed out. Let's see. Next up, Suthius writes, I came across some interesting AMC hacks on Facebook. One of the hacks, apparently, is that each employee hides one gift card around the theater before each shift for guests to find. I looked further into this, and I did see some posts of people finding them. Now, I have heard this before, Suthius, and while I don't know 100% for certain, I will say this. As somebody who was an employee of AMC theaters for a long time, as somebody whose office and studio was in an AMC theater, the AMC Burbank 16 is where our AMC studios were for a number of years. I have never heard that, nor ever actually seen that as a reality. Maybe there's a AMC theater somewhere with a manor, but AMC is also a very, very cheap company. And that's not a bad thing. That's good business, but they're a very, very cheap company. I don't see them handing out gift cards to staff to hide around the theaters. I just don't see that happening. So maybe some people randomly found gift cards around the theaters, or maybe there's one or two theaters where the manager lets them do that. I'm just saying, as somebody who worked at AMC, I never saw any indication that that was actually true, but just because I worked at AMC doesn't mean I knew everything that was happening at AMC. So who knows? All right. Jack Lumbers writes, Did you just like Eternals or did you love it? I would say I really liked it. I really enjoy it. I wouldn't say I love it. Like, I try to reserve the term love it for like maybe 5, 6, or 7 films a year, but I really enjoyed it. Like, I like it quite a bit. Anyway, I remember that before Shang-Chi came out, you were concerned that the MCU was being overextended with the amount of content being released. If you only liked Eternals, has that concern resumed? Well, listen, whether I liked, loved, or hated Eternals has nothing to do about whether I feel like the MCU is overextending itself. Those are two totally separate things and not connected at all. I love Shang-Chi, but that doesn't mean my concern about the MCU overextending itself has gotten any less. And if I had hated Eternals, that wouldn't mean it was any better. They're two totally separate individual things. But I will say this, I really liked Eternals, but Eternals also makes me feel like the MCU is getting overcrowded and losing some of the magic of the fantastical within the mundane. And we talked about that before, but I see those as two separate issues, Jack. All right, Ben Burnside writes, one of two. I am brand new to Star Trek, but I'm getting started with Next Generation. That's a perfectly good place to start. I saw a super eerie episode last night called The Survivors, where Picard and the Enterprise encounter an immortal being who killed an entire race for killing his mortal wife. The mystery throughout the episode was tremendous and compelling. I'm starting to also realize that there are Star Trek characters in their universe that are more powerful than any character in Star Wars lore. Next Generation is consistently good, by the way. Listen, I think Star Wars: The Next Generation is the best Star Trek ever. All right? I think it's the best Star Trek ever. And I like a lot of Star Trek. I like more Star Trek than Robert Meyer Burnett does. He hates anything that's come out, in the last 15 years. But I like a lot of Star Trek, but I think Next Generation is the best thing they've ever done. It was not consistently good. It definitely had some road bumps. Next Generation absolutely had some road bumps. But yeah, the way the writers of Star Trek made the show, look, I could create a cinematic universe right now. I could open up Notepad, start typing, welcome to the, Soggy Ass Plus's first original movie, Battle of the Cosmos. I'm writing Battle of the Cosmos, first feature film on Soggy Ass Plus. And in this, there's Ugathatha. And Ugathatha is the most powerful entity ever known in creation, can do this and this and this and this. Well, there. Now, my universe has the most powerful creatures. It just depends on who's writing it, right? It just depends on who's writing it. But yeah, as soon as you get like Q in Star Trek's Next Generation, who I love Q, John DeLance, can't wait to see him in the new Picard, the new season of Picard, coming back as Q. I mean, that's one of the most powerful, omniscient kind of characters they've ever had. But yeah, it just all depends on where they're at. But the next Star Wars writer can just send down, okay, there's an ancient Force user named Master Uga Makuka. For some reason, I'm loving the letter O these days. Uga Makuka, and he could control all of life and death throughout the universe. It just all depends on how you write it. But yes, Next Generation is my favorite Star Trek. All right, let's see. Casey McNatt writes, hey, John, just got back from a Tuesday night double feature of Antlers and Last Night in Soho, which I got to see both of those this weekend because they're both on my watch list. Haven't had a chance to watch them. Anne's been away. Tomorrow night, we're going to go see Eternals again. Maybe Friday. I'll have a chance to go watch both of those. Anyway, overall, Antler started off slow, but I ended up liking it in the end. The creature design was very cool. As for Last Night in Soho, I got to say I really liked Anya Taylor-Joy and Thomas Mackenzie's performances in this, as well as Matt Smith, who always gets these small roles for such a very underrated actor. As far as Edgar Wright films go, I would actually put this in my top 3 very fun movie. I am hearing nothing but amazing things about Last Night in Soho. You guys know how much I love Edgar Wright's work. Love that guy. Not only a great filmmaker, very super cool guy off camera as well. Love him. Cannot wait to see this. All right, next up. Andy Hong writes, hey, John. I'm still looking forward to No Way Home, but the more I think about the recent Morbius trailer is easily better than the No Way Home trailer. The recent Morbius trailer took my anticipation and unexpectedly skyrocketed. I'll agree. I really like the Spider-Man No Way Home trailer very much. I thought the Morbius trailer was the better trailer. Am I saying I think Morbius is going to be the better movie than Spider-Man No Way Home? No, I'm not saying that. We're just talking about trailers. But yes, I think the Morbius trailer was the better trailer. I do. I thought it was a tremendous trailer. I thought it was really fantastic. And because, you got to divorce the notion of the movie I'm looking forward to more with how good was the actual trailer. And I am more looking forward to Spider-Man No Way Home, but that trailer was great. And I think the Spider-Man No Way Home trailer was also excellent, but I'm going to agree with you, Andy. I thought the Morbius trailer was the better trailer. Not that it'll be the better movie. All right. Andy Hong also writes, I noticed that Lucifer and Brooklyn Nine-Nine, two of some of my favorite shows, ended a week apart from each other. It's kind of bizarre because on both shows were originally on Fox. On top of that, Fox even announced their cancellation a day apart. Suck it, Fox. This is another great example of what we were talking about a little bit earlier about the streaming services don't care about how many people watch. The streaming services care about how many new subscribers does it get. I love the show Lucifer. I love that show. Tom Ellis as Lucifer Morningstar has been my favorite character on TV for a number of years now. I love that show. But Netflix didn't pick it up because they thought it would become the number one worldwide film or number one worldwide show. They picked it up because they knew the show had a bit of a fan base. And if we bring it over to Netflix, we're going to get some new subscribers. And they were right. They did. They got a bunch of new subscribers because they brought over Lucifer. But they also knew that they weren't going to get new subscribers for it for a long time. So they were only going to do one season. Then there was this big demand for a second one. So they ended up doing a second season as well on Netflix, but then they ended it there because it's all about what, and the same with Brooklyn Nine-Nine. It's like, you know what? Bet you if we bring Brooklyn Nine-Nine over, a bunch of Brooklyn Nine-Nine fans who are very passionate about that show, they'll sign up for Netflix. Same is true as Designated Survivor, the Kiefer Sutherland show. Not huge viewership numbers, but definitely, a small passionate fan base. I really liked Lone Survivor, by the way. I used to watch that show when it was still on. And they thought, you know what? We don't have to run it for long, but if we bring it over Netflix, we're going to get some new subscribers. And that's the whole thing with that. So, yeah. All right. Guys, that's all the time we have for today. Listen, there are still more questions to come from Andy himself, Dangerous D, and Robin, and others. Do not worry, guys. I'm going to do a companion video a little bit later today, and we will get through all the rest of the questions. Not a terrible ton more questions to go, so we'll get through all the remaining questions. If you sent in a question and you haven't seen it read yet, hang tight. We'll get to it in the companion video a little bit later today. But that'll do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much, everybody, for taking time out of your day to be here. Big thank you to you guys who sent in the comments on Super Chat. Thank you for that. Thank you to all of you guys who sent in the questions using the tip link. Number one, because you gave us great fun things to talk about. But number two, you supported this channel as you did it. And all of us involved with the John Campea Show, thank you guys so very much for your support. And don't forget, guys, do email me or leave a comment below and let me know what you thought of us taking a few minutes in between the main topics and then taking the viewer questions about getting your comments on the topics that we use via the Super Chat feature. If you liked it, we'll do it some more. If you didn't think it worked, we won't do it anymore. That's simple. Anyway, that'll do it for me, guys. Oh, one other thing, shout out. If you want to support the show and all that kind of stuff, a great way to do it. And if you want to get some free money on the side too, again, our sponsor on today's show, Get Upside. Go download the app. It's available on Android or Apple, and make sure you use that promo code Campy when you do. Give it a shot. I think you're going to have a good time using it. I certainly do. We just used it again last night when we were driving out to Burbank to go see Eternals again. So go give that one a shout as well. Go give that a shot as well. All right, guys, that will do it for me. Thanks so much for being here, everybody. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.